Last week, Michael Hamflett.
Yes.
Mariah May turned on Toni Storm. Now, we weren't available in the office to discuss it, so we're going to right now lavish praise all over this angle, talk about it in depth, and then we're going to rank where it sits in the canon of greatest AEW angles ever. You have been desperate to talk about it for a full week. Let's go.
Well, I thought it was one of the best ever as I was watching it. They have, it's like, I don't want to give faint praise to these two. I want to give faint praise to AEW as a part of giving bigger praise to these two. They've booked a woman in Mariah May. Like, well, it's been 5 years from scratch. This was the play. And yes, there was points where, because the heel and babyface dynamic did get a bit switched, you were thinking, is this going to be Toni Storm turned on Mariah? There was a couple of weeks with the teasers of the throwing the towel in, and was she intimidated by her? And look, they can still play with that now.
Yeah, but it will still scan to Toni Storm as, no, I really bonded with you and looked after you and were protective over you, so that's why I did it. And then Mariah May can interpret it as, no, you saw me coming as a threat and all the rest of it.
It was patronising for you to think that I couldn't hang, basically. And like Mina Shirakawa now is a sort of as a background player in all of this is kind of inspired, because the last thing we saw was her acting as a bonding agent between all three of them, ultimately, that left Mariah and Tony's relationship as strong as it has ever been. And when's the best time to do it?
Yes.
When the relationship has never looked stronger. So the timing and the execution couldn't have been any better. I've watched this clip now like hundreds of times, as will everybody watching this podcast. And even when Willow Nightingale goes to shake Mariah May's hand, you can see the glint, the evil glint in Mariah May's eye. Yeah, I'll shake your hand, but I've got what I needed now. Time to pull the trigger. And again, the framing of it, because we're a week late, everybody's already had all the takes, and that's fine. But the pullback and reveal of the Wembley graphic as Mariah May stood over Toni Storm was cinema. Yeah. It was just stunning, which, for this Toni Storm character is what it needs to be. I thought Luther's involvement was really quite sweet. Like, for him to try and limply and listlessly defend
everyone in AEW gets a moment.
Yeah, only to get
even Matt Hardy got Stadium Stampede. Every single wrestler in AEW has had something where it's like, you know what, that was class.
We've spotted,
Luther
by the way,
got one.
There is now a new cheat in wrestling. We always said the table is a great cheat because of the noise. It's more than that. Table spot off a ramp got Jay and Jimmy out of trouble at WrestleMania, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like, there's Luther's like deathmatch moment is getting a table spot off a ramp. But it was just super effective because you needed that one big visual that was almost comedic in order to keep Tony and Mariah's moment super mega serious. It's one of the biggest matches on All In. It made an argument last week for main event at Wembley. It won't. It's AEW, and ultimately they're setting up certain things to main event Wembley. But the Owen Hart tournament and the stipulation that came with that from the very beginning was designed to set up something big time. And this is absolutely the biggest women's match AEW will ever promote on a show where they're promoting Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker.
I think they've had a few of those. Money versus Willow Nightingale really got there in the end.
Yeah, but this other match at Wembley is like the two big names, but now it cannot compete with the story.
I want to see it try.
That's the thing. You're creating that Shark Tank environment, which you should, because the women have probably felt like they've been swimming in around that Shark Tank for ages with no actual opportunity to make the best of what they're accomplishing from these limited spots. Not now. Like, there is an obvious right now 1 and 1A of what's the bigger match at Wembley, and you've got the Blood Feud versus the Two Stars. And both
Blood Feud versus Box Office.
Yeah, that's like Wembley should have it. A wrestling company should have it. It should have this range, and it's great because they're so separate from one another. You don't need a heavy heat Britt Baker, Mercedes Moné angle, because this is going to be the one with all the heat. You probably get one, but this has got all the heat now.
What a 1-2 punch, by the way, to do the Mercedes Brit segment and then a week later do this.
Yeah,
very much a look at what our women's division is. It's actually awesome.
Probably going back a couple of years now, when John Moxley was bleeding a lot, and
it was awesome.
There was a lot of people.
You should never stop doing it.
A number of people that I'm not as big a fan of blood in wrestling as you are, but I understand the value of blood. So it was more the fact that the more that he bleeds, the less that it feels impactful. Women in wrestling just simply aren't permitted to bleed as much, and that's why there is a rich history in AEW. It's of women's hardcore matches where you've got I'm thinking of like a Ruby Soho or a Willow Nightingale or a
The bunny,
Tay Conti, these iconic images, and Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, of course, the most iconic women's match in AEW to date, is about them bleeding and being permitted, I guess, to get a lot of the things that the men get all the time.
Yeah.
Where that is actually a benefit and where these restrictions have actually accidentally been a benefit is just
discipline is key as a creative tool.
It's how impactful it was last week. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily been disciplined for the right reasons. I just think sometimes the women aren't.
Yeah, that's a byproduct of it. Yeah,
but what you get as a result is something as powerful as last week, a visual as powerful, something that felt as cruel as it did violent. It wasn't violent for violence sake. Straight away you see the symbolism of the shoe, but it serves as a weapon. Like high heel shoe used to be a weapon that was mocked, because Hogan and Savage were running around with it in WCW. Not now. Like AEW have made the high heel shoe just as serious as a barbed wire baseball bat because context is everything. This was magic. This was an all-timer. And like, not just for AEW, pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Like, you knew it when you were watching it. You could feel like your electricity running through your veins. You could feel all that. It was magic.
What I thought was particularly impressive about it is Mariah May and Toni Storm. Like, the storyline's been plotted. Yes, there's some issues with the babyface heel alignment, dynamic, whatever, which got in the way of certain builds and all the rest of it. But as a story between these two characters, it's been so well plotted. But plotting can only take you so far. If the wrestlers do not have chemistry, it's not going to be that great. But Tony Khan has always been great at that, of identifying who would be good to wrestle or team with whom, all the rest of it. We probably should have seen it coming because it's been going on a long time. There is a huge show in Wembley with the English Mariah May sort of hovering around it. And then it was in the main event as well. Angle alert klaxon should have been blaring. Main event, something's going on here.
What's so nice about that, though? It made sense in the fiction of AEW that you open Dynamite with Danielson Page because they're known for going long.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to think, they've done that first because that's what these two do.
And this is the detail-oriented company that elevates everything when it's absolutely on fire. I sort of expected and demanded Paige Danielson to go that long because it would be, if that just started at like 140, you'd think that takes away from the story.
It's not real feeling, is it?
That would, from the story they've built. But the Angle Alert klaxon didn't blare last week, which I thought was such a testament to the chemistry that they've developed as a unit that you do think it's inconsistent. We know it's going to turn. It's all about Mariah. They've said from day one, not only is it how wrestling just functions generally, but they've said all along, we're doing all about Eve, and this is the story, so just strap in for it. So I thought it was such a testament to them that they'd done it. And I see blood angles all the time. You see turns all the time. One of the reasons that this was elevated above so much else, so much other fare that we've seen recently, is that I'm callous to a lot of pro wrestling in general, certainly a lot of pro wrestling violence in turns, like I've argued pretentiously that we are post everything and it's really hard for a lot to get traction.
Yeah.
I rarely experience that feeling of that's too far. That is too far. The way that heel was just getting jammed dangerously near Toni Storm's eye, I was like, that eye's coming out.
She found you always use the Austin bedpan thing. She found a contact sweet spot with the rest of the shoe because the noise of the shoe hitting the body, and it wasn't the heel, obviously, but the noise of the shoe hitting the body was so loud. It was almost visceral.
It's a very different thing, but one of our favorite angles, we talk about it relentlessly, is the Cobra Savage Jake Roberts, 1991. There was that feeling of that thing is not meant to be there.
Yeah.
Like, that heel is not meant to be so close to her eye, and obviously the blood, it's the illusion, isn't it? She's obviously worked it very well. Toni Storm still has eyes.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, it's getting too close. It was actually transgressive, unconscionable, all of those things that make a heavy heat angle an angle, and just the whole, absolutely no one has ever said, and give me some receipts, but they didn't get traction even if one person has tweeted it. No one's ever said, penny's dropped, she's going to attack her with a shoe at one point.
Yeah.
Watch for the shoe. That's AEW, goddammit.
Toni Storm gets colour.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Like all the various ways in which...
Black and white, Tony, when you get, you want colour, do you? Well, there it is. Watch out for the shoe. I mean, that's AEW. I pretentiously refer and allude to Raymond goddamn Carver all the time. But that's what people talk about when they talk about AEW.
I tweeted something like that last week in that I don't think we are harsh in a lot of people do. I don't think we're harsh in our criticisms of AEW, but I think we're very fair about measuring, right, it's 2024 has been loads better than 2023, for example. Yeah. But where does it stack up against like 2021 or 2020 or even 2022? But I think last week a lot of people were shaken awoke by AEW. When I've been praising it, it really hasn't been up to much because that's what it feels like. That angle last week I think it's like the best moment of AEW's year, for example. Yeah. And there's been a lot of good stuff and a lot of stuff to praise. And week on week, we've been tracking, like, I think Dynamite's been a pretty great show the last month and a half. Yeah. Once they got Forbidden Door out of the way, especially, but even before that, you could tell they were building like something bigger beyond Forbidden Door with the characters that weren't related to New Japan or CMLL. And I just felt last week that should remind people of what it is that people are chasing with AEW. What the dragon that they are chasing is that, not, it was pretty solid. Yeah, it's back on track. I think it's good. There's a lot of that in AEW, but
you can't do anything like this every single week.
No,
obviously.
Of course you can't. But you should already there should be characters on screen right now in stories within AEW that are where Mariah and Toni were in January, let's say. There should always be that next thing that's when you talk about the plotting. Again, a plot is only a plot until there's a big angle or a big development that makes the difference in like elevating it into being something you could put on a pay-per-view. But we should be watching those now.
Yeah.
We should be watching those characters getting plotted out. MJF's return, I would say, is a good example of that currently. Where he is at is as a result of some solid return plotting followed by a big angle with Daniel Garcia, and now we're on the road to Wembley. Characters up and down the roster should be at the earliest stage of their stories because we've just seen Toni Storm and Mariah May and been given an example of what it is to believe in the company still. So if you want to trust the process again, the wrestlers that we've just talked about on this card, or the wrestlers wrestling in seemingly not meaningless, but in fixtures, in run-of-the-mill matches, no, be encouraged to look for stuff again. Be encouraged to look for why that wrestler is interacting with that one, or what it is they're doing, or what move they've just added, who they might wrestle down the line. Because that's what we were encouraged to do every week, all the time. Yeah. When AEW first launched, that feeling was like, once every probably 4 weeks, because there were more wrestlers reaching the apex where it was time to do the big angle or something like that. You know?
Absolutely. So it could very well be the best angle that they've ever done. We're going to go through some honorable mentions. Might not even reach a conclusion, but we just want to be nerds and talk about it because it's good to be passionate about. And I thought it was a good talking point. When we talk about AEW being, you're so much better than my fantasy booking. You are so much better. You're ahead of me. You're working me. You're manipulating my emotions. You are doing feats of narrative ingenuity that I'm nerdy enough to stand up and applaud in my living room while I watch it. It's a pretty high bar, but hey, I'm not the one who set it. AEW are the ones who set it. So when we talk about that, MJF revealing, I'm a snake, old man, and like CM Punk is such an incredible bleeder to begin with. The Daily's plays before Revolution 2022 when he realizes, no, I've just manipulated you one more time. Not only did you still hold on to the fact that, can MJF be redeemed as a babyface? Yes, it didn't really work, but it was still a pretty, really intelligent way of just illuminating. Maybe it was inconceivable that MJF could ever one day be a babyface. And not only did you do that, you got the twist to heat up the match as if it needed any more.
It was an angle a week.
It was just unbelievable. But when it's that penny drop of, oh, you're so much better than me. And I love being manipulated emotionally by a wrestling promoter. That's why you get into it. I'm a snake, old man. It's like, you motherfucker. Because you've been saying the whole time, I'm the heir to your throne. You're not the best heel of the 21st century. You're not the time traveler who can get earnest heat in this calloused sort of blurred lines era that we live in. No, Punk, it's me. I thought that was absolutely tremendous. That might be the apex, realistically.
It was everything about that incredible story. Like Crystal, he rips off he's in the white suit, obviously for the blood, but he rips off and he's got the picture that started it all. And he just smears
the blood on it.
Punk's blood across it. And MJF's in his little green top. and it's the same green as the suit the first time they met, and Punk rejected the handshake. And it's
Yeah.
like, ties all the way back. He's called himself a super fan that was let down by Punk. How does he prove he's a super fan? Literally recites his lines from when Punk was last in Ring of Honor. It was the whole story.
It was just unbelievable.
Blooded in with the diamond ring, which only 2 weeks before Wardlow giving them the back pass and would factor into the finish.
Yeah. It was perfect. It was 100% flawless, perfect, everything. Like, it was because it was the angle after MJF had sort of spoken very candidly and emotionally about the treatment he received at school and why CM Punk was an outlet. And you were thinking, like, what do they do next week to heat this up? Like, what? This is such a strange pivot.
Because he didn't want to fight him in the dog collar, did he? Like,
yeah.
He didn't want to do it. He was trying to, like, Punk had lost the first match, so offered him the dog collar. And then MJF was like, right.
Yeah.
Where now? And that's where,
Absolutely unbelievable. The Cody Lashes segment, we'll speak on Wilborn's behalf. That was just a case study in how to build anticipation in a match, how to make you want to see a goodie beat the baddie.
Yeah.
A total case study. It was measured to perfection. Wardlow was such a great supporting character. I mean, Wilborn loved the little... Like, I've seen Hosses, very recklessly, like, nearly injure jobbers. I've seen Hosses do like these really cool sort of like move combinations against jobbers and squash matches. Rarely ever been so intimidated by a monster when Wardlow just with a little tiny movement of his fingers was like, I'll have that. And he quite literally followed through with the whip as well.
That was where a lot of the Batista comparison started, I think. Because Batista was good for his in the pre-turn days with Evolution.
And what a lofty earned comparison that was.
I think it was one of the first times you saw some acting. That was like, I remember that vividly. NXT was getting his ass handed to it by then. I wasn't even the biggest Cody guy. NXT didn't have anything like that in its locker. It did not.
No, it had no angles. It had no spark.
We could have debated like what made like good wrestling TV or what stars we wanted to watch or anything like that. This awful heel whipping a guy 10 times in like something that had become a bit of a cliche because of the like replaying of the Tommy Dreamer Sandman Kaning angle, for example.
They waited long enough to do it though.
To put it on television and to not shy away from the drama of it and how long that kind of stuff takes, to donate the TV time to it. I just remember watching it and thinking, well, like NXT simply would not do that.
It couldn't.
And AEW might have been, obviously by then, there was simply no comparison with WWE's main roster. But even the stuff that you might like on NXT, they haven't got one of them in them. They just haven't.
It was so bold as well, because I remember the chat leading up to it was like, Cody is a babyface. He can't do that. Like, he just can't. It's like, it's really damaging to him.
Yeah, it makes him look weak.
But like, and they just went and did it. It was absolutely incredible. In the same time period, February 2020. God damn it. Not so much an angle, but a promo segment. But an angle ultimately is something that exists to build interest in a match. The Elite sit down, where, I'm sorry, this is going to offend your World Wrestling Federation heart, where they basically took not the premise, but the philosophy of Brett versus Owen of, I can kind of see it both their ways.
Yeah.
They sort of took that and ran with it, that Elite sit down ahead of the Elite Explode at Revolution 2020, where Kenny Omega's like, oh, we kind of fluked it. I don't know how we've done this. And Hangman Page is like, no, we're the best. He's like, oh, well, you're the best tag team in the world. And then it finally comes out where Matt Jackson, as he went by at the time, was like, you're a jobber in Ring of Honor, mate. And it was like, oh, get him, Hangman. They just plotted this wonderful thing where it was like, Page is a hero. Page is a hero. Yes, he's a bit distant and a bit aloof and he'd rather drink. And he's behaving in a way that would half indicates it was as clever as it used to think it was, this Elite stuff.
Yeah. The
idea of he's a bit aloof, maybe he should just join in, and he's drinking and all the rest of it. But then Matt Jackson was basically, this made you week upon week go, Page is the guy. Page is the guy. Page is the hero. Page is the babyface. And that you're a jobber of Ring of Honor. You should be grateful that we let you join this sort of thing. It was like, get him at him.
It was a 3-on-1 in the room.
I know.
It didn't feel nice.
Really uncomfortable. And, I think the Young Bucks are the best tag team of all time. And yet, because nuance is able to exist, I think Matt Jackson in particular can really overact. And I don't think that's a hot take. He was unbelievable here. Right? Absolutely unbelievable. Two more very quickly, because I know you've got some that you want to nerd out over as well. Just the Full Gear 2019 Go Home Bro, where Matt Jackson's like, I don't have to stand here. This is not a TV show. It is, but it isn't. And the way they just like the way that they previewed the entire card without once feeling like, when there's a ladder match, it's like, where's this ladder come from? Oh, there's a ladder match on Sunday. It should have been way more contrived to go, oh, he's coming out and he's feuding with him. Oh, it's like they tied everything together so perfectly. That to me was the best illustration of the ultimate benefit that AEW had, which no promotion will ever have again, of, right, we've got time to actually plan this. We have got an off-season to thread every little tiny wonderful thing together.
A week one to a pay-per-view or whatever after.
Yeah.
Was that around the time as well where Hangman Page wasn't coming to make the saves? So they were already planting the seed. Like, we were supposed to boo him. Why is he not helping the Elite? Come on, Hanger.
Yeah.
And that's the first point at which you kind of, the separation was being made apparent because he lost his title shot. And then that gets us to Revolution, where by this point it's starting to flip a little bit.
Yeah.
And you've, up to this point, felt like the Elite were kind of justified in their own distance from Hangman.
Yeah.
Don't be dickheads about it, though.
Yeah.
That was where it started to pivot, wasn't it? Yeah.
And one more, there's probably loads more, but for the sake of brevity, I know it wasn't Dynamite, but it's the best angles in AEW history. This was Rampage of all shows, the Eddie Kingston CM Punk face-off.
Oh my God.
I've never, because Eddie Kingston is a genius, I cannot recall a more realistic meltdown of, you've cornered me into this reaction, because Eddie Kingston understands mental anguish because he's actually lived it and he continues to live it. He knows that sarcasm is anger's ugly cousin, and one thing begets another. When he's doing the whole arms folded very sarcastically as Punk's trying to condescend him, and like Eddie Kingston's very sarcastically like reacting to CM Punk's material, and then because it's Eddie, he knows, right, if I can do sarcasm, it's not to really get thrown off. It starts with him just being sarcastic, and then that visual of him after trying to eat CM Punk's head, his tongue out. That's the most pissed off I've ever seen a human being ever. And it was actually a work because Eddie Kingston's such a genius.
You mentioned
that facial is I don't think I'll ever just vibrating of like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I was just like ripping my shirt off. If there was a magic button on that television screen, a touch screen, just bear with me, this ridiculous thing I'm going to say. If it's like, right, touch screen, you can only watch this pay-per-view if you pay £500. You've got 5 seconds to make the decision. I would have just diving headbutted it. Just in case I couldn't press
the Super Bowl and just smashed the telly.
Just in case I couldn't press it strong enough. I want to, okay. I just jumped in and headbutted it. I went mad.
It's the best. It's maybe the best thing ever. Like I watched
it was so great.
I watched the match yesterday. And I'm thinking, is the match the best thing ever? And it's like, maybe if you include it with a promo, maybe it's the best thing ever. Maybe Kingston
it was
Punk is maybe the best thing ever.
Ultimate pissy. Like that's how feuds actually happen.
Time to show them how it's done a bit. Like wrestling at large. Yeah. Time to show a lot of wrestlers how to actually do this.
CM Punk being, I got on my, I lost 60 seconds on Rampage because of you, Eddie Kingston. Yeah. It's absolutely the thing he would care most about.
He is still, it was just blocked stunningly. They use that camera in the corner, so it starts off with them both in the corner, and Kingston is trying to remain on Punk's level, as you say, in terms of being calm. Punk remains like stood, he's almost like leaning. And then Kingston starts to pace, and it's just, this corner thing's not working for you, Eddie. He's suddenly right in his face. As you mentioned Savage and Jake with a Cobra. Kingston is trying to dislocate his jaw like a snake to bite CM Punk. I compare it to Bob.
He wanted to swallow his entire body.
Yeah, there are not enough other humans to get in the way of how much they want to fight. And again, when promo matches match, I think it does something more to it in hindsight as well. It was the perfect promo to build to the perfect match, and the match was the perfect match to back off of that.
To pay off that, yeah.
Like the two things, so simpatico. And in a way, and obviously there's a million things left on the table with Punk and AEW, but while a lot of people would say, oh, another go Kingston would be nice, I don't think so. I think it's like...
They couldn't have said, like, all right, that's out of our systems.
It's like the Smiths having no B-sides, isn't it? They got in, perfect catalogue, got out.
The characters got out of their system as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely unbelievable. Have you got a few more to round it off?
There's one I've just added to my list there because you mentioned about Eddie Kingston. Kingston and Moxley, when Moxley mentioned Ruthie for the first time and they come face to face on Dynamite.
He's got no right to look as genuinely pissed off as he does.
Like best mates, and they're just about to have a pay-per-view title fight. And
I'm going to destroy you.
Yeah,
oh my God.
They've set the stakes as win or die.
Eddie Kingston really. Last year, just to remind you, everyone, it was not made, but like he did a gimmick where he didn't want to talk on TV.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Look at the tools he has to offer.
Sort of anti-promotion of an Eddie Kingston, that isn't it? Really, like not using that. There's a man that finds hatred.
I think it's one of the low-key dumbest character shifts of all time.
Yeah,
and I'll stand by that.
Like. Left for Ring of Honor or something, didn't he? Just to go and wrestle. Cody and Brody Lee, I think is my favourite AEW moment ever because I think it's more of an angle than a match. I think it had the same energy last week with just how violent it was, and AEW like having it take place on the stage and having such an obvious villain and a victim, as was the case with Cody and Brody. I just thought it was perfection, really. Like I remember you were one of the staunchest defenders of Cody Rhodes winning more than a lot of people wanted him to, because in order to put these losses over,
look at Jericho.
Yeah, you got to stack the wins up. But what I loved about Cody's TNT title reign was that he was clearly stacking the wins up as a good cause. It was during a pandemic and he was getting people jobs.
Yeah,
he was beating people on Eddie Kingston. We just talked about Ricky Starks. Sonny Kiss, one of the best matches against Cody Rhodes. There was examples. Well, the Warhorse got to go. I didn't enjoy it, but I'm glad on a philosophical level that it happened. That was the purpose of that whole run, wasn't it? And there's Cody Rhodes. The door is as open as we can possibly make it here in Florida, and I can't win the top title, but I'll make this the top title. And it was ugly ass belt as well, and even the ugly ass belt being smashed to pieces as part of the attack, and being dropped on Cody. Brody, I don't want this. I don't want this garbage. It has to look
beautiful for me.
Yeah, he patronising, condescending, boss-like figure. No, I'm the boss here. This is my dark order. I'm the exalted one in every sense of the word. It was, again, there's so much pandemic AEW you love because they had no right with the restrictions placed on them to create as much magic pro wrestling television.
What I loved about that angle as well was that the squash just looked like Cody could have been... He wrestled in exactly the same way as maybe one of Brody Lee's first squash match opponents. Just completely decisive.
The difficulty levels were set differently.
It was strange because it wasn't... The beating wasn't that bad in terms of did he even bleed? Bled at the end.
Might have bled at the end. I don't think he bled in the match.
He was just in the match.
He was physically overwhelmed.
It was. And what I liked about it is as soon as when they stretched him, it had that jarring. You know how in wrestling and most things it's fairly innocuous or relatively innocuous things, like the thing that really mess you up.
Yeah.
It's why is he in a stretcher? That doesn't look like a stretcher job. Why is he in a stretcher? I just thought that was really, really, really well done.
The night where Hangman Page grabs the leg in the gauntlet.
Don't, because I'll talk about it for 15 minutes.
The Young Bucks then kick him out of the Elite, throw the drink in his face, and you're left with the visual of Hangman Page looking at the broken mirror. It's an all-time storytelling night, and again, I remember watching it trapped in the house in the summer of 2020.
How do they get away from doing FTR versus the Young Bucks in a match? All right, the best solution of all time. Great. Company's the best of all time. This is the best company of all time. That's how I was feeling at the time.
You had an advancement of the story with the pulling of the leg. You had a really significant turning point in the relationship with the Young Bucks, and you had it's kind of all my favorite things in wrestling because I've not had to mention a match here. The visual of him in the mirror becomes one of those iconic Hangman Page visuals.
Yeah.
When they were just pulling them out their ass every other week, for the video packages that were to follow. It's a bit of a low-key one, but I just remember thinking everybody is exactly where they need to be here. Christian Cage turning on Jungle Boy and then telling his family off.
Yeah.
At the end of that Dynamite.
You raised a piece of...
Just so nasty. And it was there it is. There's... you knew it was coming, and that was what was fun about it. It was it was never about the when... It was about the how, and the way that he did it was just particularly cruel.
Such an arsehole. Yeah.
It's there he is.
So hard to make adult wrestling fans feel something. Well, this one anyway.
Yeah.
And I just remember watching it going, "Are you arsehole?"
And this one, because I saw it on X a couple of weeks ago, and it was posted with the context of, it wasn't an account having a dig at AEW, but it was just where have these crowds gone? And it follows one of my favorite ever Dynamite matches while we're talking Dynamite 250. Punk's return at Quake by the Lake, proper building going insane. Baby's getting tossed in the air. He saves the day, and then immediately it's folded into John Moxley, like doing the shoulder check.
Yeah.
And the two of them are back, and there's going to be a massive, like the biggest title fight AEW has is on because Punk's still the champion. Moxley doesn't respect him as the champion. He gives him the finger straight in the face. But even like the way, like Punk knows how to like position himself for the save, just stepping back from Sammy Guevara, I think it was, and just decking him. As like the Jericho Appreciation Society, you just get like, they're just pinballing around the ring, and Jericho and Moxley have just had this epic Dynamite.
It was unbelievable.
It's the Dynamite feeling when everything is just clicking.
Did you see a bit of Schadenfreude here? Chris Jericho chased the Dragon against Joe last week on Dynamite, because if you remember, he did the Walls of Jericho on Mox in Quake by the Lake. And it's just this the definition of a match that just clicks. It's like, well, this is awesome. This is the best possible version of this match it could be. And then he does the Walls to Mox at Quake by the Lake, and it goes through the entire commercial, and everyone's like, come on, Moxley, break it, break it, break it. Did it against Joe last week, and everyone was like, why's it going on this long?
Let go. Do something else.
Yeah, like that is a very, like a symmetrical bit of poetry about the decline of Le Champion.
That's what happens when you wrestle 250 Wednesdays in a row, Sidge.
Le Champion he's had some pretty great angles. I mean, the parody video.
Oh, all-timer stuff.
The parody video.
Stuff. Is it Sammy that kisses him on the head?
Yeah, it kisses him on the cheek like they do the Cody Brandy.
Chris Jericho is the youngest AEW champion of all time.
Chris Jericho's greatness is like the breadsticks at the Olive Garden. Unlimited.
Yeah. Great times.
It's in my opinion, the best run of weekly episodic television in the history of US cable.